All right, welcome back to Windsor Time, and we have a fun one for you today. I'm here with Noah as always,
How's it going, guys?
and kicking it back to something that's very near and dear to a lot of us, but that is that sweet, sweet Omega Seamaster 300M of different variations, and we have a really fun one in our pre-owned department here. But
Absolutely.
first, what are you wearing, Noah?
I am wearing my Daytona today. It's my tried and true everyday watch. But ironically, we are talking about Omega today. I'm a huge Omega fan. I've had several of their watches. I've had a couple different Seamasters. I've had the Aquaterra,
Speedmaster.
uh, two different Speedmasters. Currently have a Speedmaster, and then a Seamaster Professional as well. Really, really phenomenal watches. But yeah, today I just happened to be the Daytona. What
Cool.
about you?
I am wearing what was my first, what I would call real watch, which is an Omega Seamaster 300M that I received from my father in 2004 when I
That's awesome.
graduated high school.
So
Which is
cool.
a very, like, for all intents and purposes, very nice high school gift
Yeah,
for graduation. I understand, and this is I guess, the Pierce Brosnan, golden eye generation. Just like
absolutely.
to me, the quintessential 300M. But there have been so many amazing Seamasters over the years, and we have another special one here.
Yeah.
I love this because it has that actual physical wave pattern in the background. A lot of people like the current glossier, or even flat wave,
Yeah.
pattern. But there's just something special about this. And I wore this watch. I think we talked about it on here once before, but I wore this watch for, the first 6 or 7 years of my watch, you know, history, if you will. And it was my one and only go-to watch. And now it's, I bring it out from time to time, and every time I do, I just have so many memories with it.
What was that like to own and just enjoy one watch and not want
I would
all
say
the other
I would say I
ones?
didn't know any better at the time because I wasn't
Yeah.
quite, as deep into this as we all are at this point. So it wasn't, it seemed like the normal thing and probably the healthier thing, at
Right.
the time. But this watch has been all around the world with me, and
Yeah.
just a great piece.
Looks
It
great.
does.
And it
Thanks, man.
really, when you're talking about dive watches, obviously you have the Submariner, but that watch is, I think, right on the heels of it and something that is just so ingrained,
Yep.
especially if you're a fan of James Bond. Huge there. But really, I mean, if you look at so many different celebrities from the early 2000s and late 90s, that's the watch a lot of them were wearing
Yeah.
because that was sort of a hype piece at the time,
Yep.
and something that had a lot of provenance because of Pierce Brosnan and that connection. But
It's
yeah,
one of those watches too that kind of like a modern Tudor or other modern Omegas, like a Speedy. You can be wearing this watch and be next to someone wearing a Patek Philippe minute repeater,
yeah,
and there's kind of an equal amount of watch hobbyist respect there. I say, I mean, it's
there
just
is.
everyone loves a Seamaster and everyone loves a Speedy as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So jumping into this piece, this is a really cool, as you can probably see from a distance, we'll get some good shot of it, but red bezel Omega Seamaster 300M Vancouver Olympics edition.
So cool.
And, Omega has been the official timekeeper partner of the Olympics for a long, long time at this point. I'm blanking on the amount of years. Nice click we're hearing
Great
here, I'm
click.
sure. Beautiful, just anodized red bezel. Came out obviously in 2010 at the Vancouver Winter Olympics. And what's really cool, it is a limited edition of 2010 pieces. So for every year, that we had been around at that point, we've got one watch coming out. What's really cool about this, at least to me, Windsor actually sold this originally in 2010
Yeah.
out of our Winston-Salem location. At the time, we were an Omega dealer. And just this past year, 2023 at least, it looped back around to us,
So
strangely
cool.
enough. So many, many years later. And it was just cool to see it come back into the fold, you
Absolutely.
know?
And this is one, it's I think a lot of brands still do playful things. Obviously, with Omega, you have the Snoopy and different stuff
Yeah,
like that. But
totally.
to have the Olympic rings on here on the second hand, I
Yeah.
think is just such a cool thing. That from a branding perspective, I don't know that you see a ton anymore in very serious dive watches like this.
Yeah.
But the red is super cool. That white dial.
I mean, they took a
It's just killer.
platform that we all know, the 300M, and they did a great job of making it feel like
Yeah.
it's the Winter Olympics. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
that, the red, the contrast of red against white. It kind of feels like the Omega Speedmaster Alaska project.
Yeah.
That was
Absolutely.
kind of, I think the original one was, there's an older one, but there was a Redux and kind of the same era, but it has that same feel to it. but just done in that 300 meter case and everything, and nice little Vancouver engraving on the back.
Super cool.
So
Well, and that's one that's cool because it is, in 2024, when does neo vintage start? It's not the 2010s.
it is hard to imagine 2010 as
80s
neo
and 90s.
vintage.
But
Yeah,
at a certain point, that
Yep.
will be a piece, and it'll be interesting to see, how those are going to continue to trade as we get further and further along, because there's so few of them. Truly. But
this one it comes with a really cool box as well, which I don't know if we'll get a shot of at this point, but really cool Olympics box. And then it came with, I don't think it came with it, but it had this unbelievable Vancouver Olympics display. I remember when it was
so
for
cool.
sale, it was this kind of like bobsled, just very Olympics heavy display specific to this watch and one or two other watches in that collection at the time. So just kind of, even though, 2010 was not that long ago, but it still feels like it harkens back to a little bit of a different era.
It does.
In today's watch world.
Yeah, absolutely. No, such a cool thing. It would be cool to see more red in watches. You have the Schumacher Speedmaster, which is very cool as well.
That's one thing I was just gonna say as well. It's funny. I feel like we see red watches all day, but then you see a red watch in the case, and you're like, it really catches your eye because
different.
Even still, there aren't that many, and especially at this point, there just weren't that many red, creations in the watch world. So.
Yeah. No, it's very, very cool watch. Very wearable watch as well, which is great. So, having been in the watch industry, obviously in a few different sort of capacities over the years, you were at Breitling, as you mentioned in another episode. You're also at Omega for a short amount of time.
Yeah, I was briefly at Omega. It was actually my first real job, I would say, in the watch world prior to coming back into our family business at Windsor Jewelers. Was at the Beijing 2008 Olympics as kind of an intern with Omega, which was awesome. And then fast forward a year or so, and I moved to New York, and the gentleman that was basically my manager in Beijing happened to have been relocated, I guess, by Omega Corporate to New York, and was launching the Omega flagship boutique on Fifth Avenue.
That's awesome.
And so one thing led to another. I ended up just in beautiful old retail there on Fifth Avenue with Omega, and had a lot of fun times there, and just learned a lot about this industry working for Monobrand. And
what was it like back then? Obviously, you're sort of before the hype culture of, that we have now with different brands. What was it like working for Omega?
I think then Omega was a great brand to work for then, because watches, while they were on celebrities, Omega was truly like they had Daniel Craig at that time as Bond.
Sure.
And Daniel, Mr. Craig, whatever, Mr. Bond would come into, from time to time into the boutique if he was doing something in town or things like that. And not that I knew him personally, but shake his hand. Now you see a watch on every celebrity out there, and it doesn't seem surprising. But at the time, Omega was one of those just leaders of placement, and obviously the Bond relationship was a huge one. So it was special to work for them. It was a short time. I was with them maybe a year and a half, so it was not a long stint for me. But I learned a lot, that's for sure. And the Olympics, not to jabber on, but the Olympics were so ingrained in Omega. We had multiple Olympics editions at any point in the Omega boutique, and then as depending on the timing, you would see a lot of activation around the Olympics as well.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think it's one of the things, now we sort of take limited editions for granted, but I feel like that was really the era when you were starting to see brands do a little bit more around special events, around Olympics and stuff like that. So it's cool to see.
You had a true limited edition that was affiliated with something like the Olympics or James Bond, as opposed to just a limited edition for no apparent reason, which we see a lot of today.
Yeah, for better or worse. And then not so limited, too, on some of them.
That's exactly right.
Anyway.
Yeah, so, Omega is just one of the most storied brands out there. Not currently in the Windsor fold as a new brand at this point, but there are some amazing values out there and previously enjoyed. And like the Speedmaster, the Seamaster really just... It's so much watch for the money, and there's so many different fun iterations and collectability behind them.
Absolutely. And when you're looking at pre-owned value, getting into pre-owned Omega, again,
hard to beat.
It's hard to beat. We've talked about the investment. We kind of don't like to go too deep into that side of it, but it really is, once you get it pre-owned in good condition, I think that is a lot of the times the biggest drop you're going to see in value. So picking up a great example of a pre-owned Seamaster like this, different Speedmasters. I think it's just a really great place to park some money.
I agree.
Enjoy it.
If you were going to have just one and only watch, whether it's this Seamaster or another version, a Seamaster 300M, that's a great one-watch collection.
Absolutely. There you go.
So.
Well, as always, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.